I feel like I'm gonna upset a lot of people with this. Hey guys, it's Callie and welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about Cowboy Bebop. Wait, not that one, the Netflix one. So Netflix recently released their live adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, and it was left with mixed reviews. I was actually working on the initial script for this video when I read that Netflix decided to cancel season 2, so I feel like that also kind of indicates the audience response to the show. But I still wanted to review the show, not only because I'd written a fair amount of the script already, but I've also seen a lot of people online complaining about how different the show was from the anime and that's why it was canceled, but I don't necessarily agree. I had a lot of issues with the show itself outside of it being an adaptation, and so I want to talk about some of my critiques of the show because I think a lot more went into the cancellation than just it not being super faithful to the anime. But before I rip the show apart, I do want to acknowledge how incredibly difficult it is to adapt animation to live action. I mentioned it before, but animation just allows you to tell stories and do things that you can't in the real world. It's incredibly hard to get the essence of an animated show correct in live action, and for every good adaptation, there are about 15 terrible ones. So I do want to at least recognize the fact that the creators were kind of fighting an uphill battle from the get-go, especially since they chose to adapt such a classic anime with such a large fan base. And I can see why they chose to reimagine the story rather than just having it be an exact copy of the anime, because it would never match up to the original. However, the show did make a lot of creative and writing decisions that I felt like really kind of detracted from the overall value of the show. I also want to preface this that I have not watched the anime, so I'm kind of going into this with an unbiased opinion. Granted, I did watch a few episodes just so I could have something to compare the Netflix show to, but I haven't seen the show in its entirety, so in this video I won't be making a lot of comparisons to the anime or kind of critiquing the show through that lens. That being said, I had a lot of issues with the show itself. I didn't really know how to go about stringing all of my random tangents together, so instead I just decided to make a list of my critiques of the show, starting with Again, I want to stress how incredibly difficult it is to translate anime to live action. You're basically taking this piece of work that's defined by its art style and aesthetics and trying to find a way to recreate that in the real world. And to their credit, I think the show did a good job incorporating the core elements of the anime, such as the aesthetics of cyber westerns and the use of jazz, but they also did a great job incorporating 100 other different aesthetics. The first 6 episodes gave me like whiplash with the number of references they had and just how frequently they were switching genres. You have references to Tarantino films, Firefly, old crime dramas, Wes Anderson, Scott Pilgrim, hell, even Over the Garden Wall. The main villain, Vicious, also looks like an off-brand Geralt of Rivera, and like, no tea, no shade, but this man is no Henry Cavill.
I like cash in my head to my ass.
At times, it felt like they just picked randomly from a list of ideas because an episode would go from feeling like a sci-fi movie to an old crime drama to a scene out of Kill Bill. And granted, they did settle into aesthetic about halfway through the series, that's still about 5 to 6 episodes where I just really couldn't understand what they were going for. I don't know if they just couldn't decide an idea or if they were trying to appeal to a wide variety of audience members or even just got too excited when writing the show, but it really made the show feel a bit clunky and kind of like they were just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. Not to mention the fact that there were a fair amount of creative choices that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, primarily their choice to romanticize the use of guns and cigarettes. And I understand that smoking and guns were a big part of the original anime, but I feel like in the episodes that I watched, these two were kind of more accessories for the characters rather than being the focus of a scene. At times, I felt like I was watching old marketing ads that try to portray smoking as sexy or cool or, show how man's man smokes cigarettes. And the amount of times that this happened low-key made me wonder what companies were helping pay for this show, because again, while smoking was a big part of the anime, I feel like there's a difference between showing a character with a cigarette versus constantly romanticizing smoking. And speaking of romanticizing, boy do they love their guns. There are so many purposeful shots intended to portray guns as this cool, manly thing to have, and while guns were central to the anime, I feel like there was also still a focus on other fighting styles such as, the use of martial arts or sci-fi technology. However, in the Netflix show, both of these things were missing and they really just went all in on showing guns and showing people getting killed by a lot of guns. Honestly, at times, it felt like they were a little too enthusiastic to show somebody getting shot in the head. Again, curious to see who funded this show. And don't get me wrong, I love gore, I love a good slasher pick, but I feel like there's a difference between showing a lot of gore and just kind of glorifying violence. I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of like seeing a bunch of people get shot in the head. It was really reminiscent of like these old Western macho movies because a lot of those aesthetics center around selling this idea of the, big macho man who smokes and shoots people. And this kind of made me feel a little bit alienated as a woman audience member because I don't know, I just sometimes felt like I wasn't really in their target demographic. And speaking of women, that brings us to my next point, which is every woman in the show was incredibly frustrating in their own way, but none of them can really compare to just how annoying Faye was.
It shoots video from its eyes.
From her introduction, Faye is portrayed as childish, annoying, and just quite frankly useless. I felt like her character existed solely to be the butt of every joke, and they really just sold her as this incompetent idiot. And this is frustrating because this is a direct contrast to who Faye was in the anime. While in the anime, Faye still does have notes of immaturity and brashness, she still portrays the competent badass that she is. It just sucks that in a show that primarily focuses on men, the writers chose to reimagine the main female character in such a semi-degrading way. They turned her from a clever con artist who can masterfully pilot a plane into a woman whose primary character traits are incompetence and unearned self-assurance.
Alright, go team! We're gonna split this 50-50, right? Guys?
And this theme of disappointing female characters continues throughout the entire series. Every woman character in this show felt like they were just propped for male characters because they're all either MILFs or overly sexualized or just the butt of a joke.
So go get him!
I was supposed to say that part.
Ah, a woman getting upset at being interrupted by a man. Hilarious. There's also this one woman whose entire personality is just making uncomfortable comments towards Jet.
Sounds to me like blackmail.
You're damn right it is, because Jet, you are black and you are male.
And if you think that's bad, there's also this white character who disguises himself as a black man, so interpret that as you will. And the only other central female character, Julia, is also a mixed bag. Because on one hand, she's this femme fatale who is reclaiming her power and manipulating the men around her, which, I can't fault. But on the other hand, her entire character development is centered around, you guessed it, men. And this makes it really hard to view her as her own autonomous character, rather than just some pawn to further the pissing contest between Spike and Vicious. I haven't looked it up, but I fully believe the show failed the Bechdel test. And while at the end she does have this moment of, reclaiming her power, but it just felt too little too late for me to really sell me on her character. I think the worst part about this is that the show is fully capable of writing strong female characters. One of the characters, Anna, is a prime example of a competent woman whose entire storyline doesn't revolve around a man. I don't know, it's just disappointing that the other female characters weren't given the same courtesy and that they chose to write the rest of the women in the show through such a semi-degrading lens. So after extensively complaining about the show, would I recommend it? Truthfully, I would. While I do have my own personal issues with the show, I did enjoy the experience and the show really did shine at times. Plus, this character, Gren, fucking best character in the entire show, love them. However, I can definitely see why the show wasn't renewed because I feel like the show kind of failed in both their appeal to anime and non-anime fans. I feel like anime fans were going to be upset with the show regardless, but the fact that the writers took so much creative liberty with the original storyline, I think only made anime fans dislike it more. And for individuals who hadn't seen the anime, like myself, there's still a lot of aspects of the show that I think were lacking or could have been done better. And so based on that, while I did overall enjoy the show, I can definitely see why Netflix canceled it, and I'm honestly not too surprised. Again, it's incredibly difficult to translate anime to live action, and I think the writers did a fair job of keeping the base essence of the anime while still making it their own, so I want to applaud them for that. I just think the storyboarding and kind of overall concept of the show needed a bit more work and just a little bit more polish. But honestly, if you're a fan of sci-fi westerns reminiscent of Firefly and Tarantino films, I think you'd really have some fun with the show, and I suggest checking it out. But yeah, those are some of my thoughts on the Cowboy Bebop series. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe if you aren't already. Again, I know that I was kind of harsh talking about the show, but I did enjoy it overall. It also really made me want to go watch the original anime series, and so far I'm loving it. But what do you guys think about the show? Did you guys watch the Netflix version, or have you seen the original anime? And if so, how do you guys think it held up? Or if you guys haven't checked it out, what are some other series you guys are watching? Currently I'm watching Sudana, which is actually a show one of you guys recommended. I'm currently only 5 episodes in so far, but wow, it's incredible. It's also a sports anime, so it's kind of a given that I'd enjoy it. Yeah, that'll do it for this video. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Also, the show needed more dog. Like, where was this dog?